Part 1. Know Yourself and Your Opponent. A Sun Tzu Guide to Modern Relationships. Young man, let me tell you something you won't find in most love songs or online dating guides. You're not just dancing in romance, you're navigating a battlefield. And in battle, ignorance is fatal. Now don't mistake me, this ain't about being cold or calculating. It's about awareness, about wisdom, about having eyes wide open while your heart stays warm. The same way a general studies the terrain before sending his men, you must study the terrain of your soul and the patterns of the people around you. Let's begin with the first principle, the most sacred one, handed down by the master strategist himself. Know the enemy and know yourself, and you will not be imperiled in 100 battles. But here's the twist. In modern life, the enemy is rarely some villain in armor. Sometimes the enemy is the part of yourself you haven't faced yet. Sometimes the enemy is the fantasy you created in your mind about who they are. And most dangerously, sometimes the enemy is your own refusal to see clearly. See, in relationships, be they romantic, professional, or personal, we often rush in like the defeated warrior Sun Tzu warned of. The victorious warrior wins first and then goes to war, while the defeated warrior goes to war first and then seeks to win. Now, don't that sound familiar? You meet someone, you feel the fire, you jump head first into love or trust or dependence before you've seen who they really are, before you've understood your own emotional patterns, your needs, your wounds. And before long, you're fighting battles you weren't prepared for. Arguments, disillusionment, betrayals. And you wonder, how did it all go wrong? The answer is right here. You didn't take the time to know yourself, your triggers, your ego, your attachment style. Nor did you pause to really know them, not just what they told you, but how they behave under pressure, how they treat people they don't need, what they fear losing. Sun Tzu teaches us that deception is not only a tactic in war, it's a natural mask that people wear. Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. You see, most people do not reveal themselves fully, especially early on. Women and men both project strength when they feel insecure. Charm can hide deep neediness. Politeness can mask passive aggression. Gentleness may conceal manipulation. And sometimes, cruelty masks deep pain. So if you take people at face value, you're gambling with your peace. That's not love, that's folly. Instead, take the higher road of the strategist. Observe patterns, not promises. As Sun Tzu said, to know your enemy, you must become your enemy. In a relationship, this doesn't mean you play games. It means you empathize without surrendering clarity. You study her story, her fears, her expectations. You ask yourself, what is she protecting? What is she afraid to lose? Because once you see this, you'll no longer take her behavior personally. You'll understand her choices not as attacks, but as moves on the board. Likewise, you must come to terms with your own battlefield. Know your fears, know the wounds from your past. Know what makes you reactive, what triggers the part of you that fights when you should pause, or runs when you should stand. Only then will you become the man Sun Tzu described, the one who is invincible because he does not depend on chance. And here's another lesson. Victory is reserved for those who are willing to pay the price. The price is inner work, discipline, time alone, long hours spent in reflection, the patience to watch instead of react, to journal instead of accuse, to hold space instead of control. See, we don't lose battles in love because we're bad people. We lose them because we don't prepare. We trust too fast. We speak too much. We defend instead of discern. And worst of all, we go to war with people we never studied. But if you walk the way, if you become the observer and the knower of self, you will not fear loss. You will not fear conflict. You will not fear being alone. You will enter every relationship with a still mind, an open heart, and a steady hand. And that, my friend, is the highest victory, not in crushing others, but in standing so centered in who you are that no chaos can pull you off your path. As the Master said, know yourself, and all battles are already won.
Part 2. Strategy and Secrecy. Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. Sun Tzu. You ever notice how some folks live loud, broadcasting every move, every thought, every new romance, every heartbreak? It's as if their sense of self is tied to being seen. But that kind of openness, when unchecked, isn't honesty, it's vulnerability disguised as connection. Now hear me clearly. I'm not saying you should live hidden, paranoid, or shut down. What I am saying is this: strategy requires silence. And silence, my friend, is not emptiness. It is potential. It is the chamber where power gathers. In this noisy world filled with oversharing and overexposure, the words of Sun Tzu are more relevant than ever. Victorious warriors win first in their minds and then go to war. Modern relationships are often rushed. We reveal too much too early. We explain ourselves before we're asked. We move based on emotion, not calculation. We act without knowing if we should even be acting at all. But strategy, true strategy, requires a different rhythm. Let me paint a picture for you. When the wind moves through the trees, it doesn't shout. It moves swiftly, unseen. The birds feel it, the grass bends to it, but the wind never explains its purpose. It just is. Sun Tzu tells us, move swift as the wind, stay as silent as the forest, attack like fire, be still like the mountain. Now, what does this mean in your day-to-day? It means keep your inner world guarded, keep your goals close, don't reveal your emotional cards at the first sign of connection. There is power in restraint. You want a strong relationship? Then stop making yourself too readable. The moment someone can predict all your moves, you've given them control. That's not love. That's exposure. Strategy and secrecy in relationships don't mean deceit. They mean discipline. Because let's be honest, not everyone is ready to meet your depth. Not everyone deserves the unfiltered truth of who you are. Some will use it, some will flee from it, some will weaponize it in a moment of anger. So learn this: opportunities multiply as they are seized. This applies to connection too. The more grounded and centered you are, the more options open to you. But options only stay open for the one who moves deliberately, not reactively. So before you confess everything, wait. Before you chase, pause. Before you retaliate, observe. The best warriors aren't impulsive. They don't lash out. They don't flinch at provocation. They build their world in silence. They measure twice and cut once. And when the moment does come, they strike like lightning. Because let me tell you, lightning doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't announce it's coming. It simply splits the sky when it's time. This is the dance of strategy and secrecy. It's not about being cold. It's about being controlled. It's about building the storm inside and waiting for the precise moment to let it loose. And this mastery of timing, this sense of when to hold and when to act, is spiritual, not just tactical. Sun Tzu writes, "Though there are only 5 musical notes, the variations in melody are infinite." Likewise, you don't need 1,000 tactics to win in love or life. You need a few clear principles repeated with discipline, patience, observation, self-control, timing. With these, you'll learn to navigate storms without being shaken. You'll learn to read people without judgment. And most of all, you'll learn when silence speaks louder than words. So remember, young warrior, let your plans remain deep within you. Do not rush to be seen. Do not move because of fear, nor speak from wounded pride. Instead, move when the moment is right. Speak only when it serves your aim. Act only from a place of clarity, not confusion. That is the way of the strategist. That is the way of the Tao. That is the wisdom of Sun Tzu. In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. Now go. Be the mountain, be the wind, be the fire, but never be predictable.
Part 3. Control and Adaptation. When the enemy is at ease, make him toil. When he is well fed, starve him. When he is settled, make him move. Sun Tzu. In every relationship, personal or professional, there's a game being played, whether you realize it or not. And the one who wins is the one who learns to adapt. You see, control in this life doesn't mean domination. It means understanding how to flow, how to bend without breaking, how to read the signs of the moment and shift your stance as the situation demands. Sun Tzu reminds us that water has no constant shape. In warfare, there are no constant conditions. The same is true in the emotional landscapes we walk each day. You'll never find a static environment in love, in family, in business. People change, moods shift, circumstances evolve. The man who expects things to remain steady is setting himself up for disappointment. Instead, we must learn to be like water, fluid, powerful, and impossible to grasp. Let me put it plainly. You cannot control how others feel. You cannot predict every outcome, but you can control your response. And more importantly, you can shape the environment. If you wait by the river long enough, the bodies of your enemies will float by. Now, don't take this literally. In modern terms, this means stop trying to force what must unfold naturally. Sometimes your silence is more effective than your argument. Sometimes your withdrawal is more powerful than your presence. Sometimes letting things fall apart without resistance is the best strategy of all. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. See, when you try to control people directly, you often create resistance. But when you manage the environment, when you adjust your energy, your boundaries, your attention, you can shift outcomes without confrontation. That's the art of emotional warfare. You don't meet fire with fire. You starve it of oxygen. Let's talk about loyalty. Sun Tzu said, "Treat your men as you would your own beloved sons, and they will follow you into the deepest valley." In modern life, that means if you want loyalty, earn it. If you want trust, build it. But do not demand it. A leader, whether in a household or a boardroom, leads by example, by presence, by strength balanced with compassion. You can't adapt if you're ruled by ego. You can't control if you're reactive. You can't win if you keep playing the same move expecting a different result. Every strong man I ever knew had this in common. They listened more than they spoke. They observed before they acted. And they made people feel seen, but never fully understood. Why? Because mystery keeps people respectful, and adaptation keeps them guessing. This isn't about manipulation. It's about balance. As Sun Tzu taught us, he who wishes to fight must first count the cost. Emotional engagement has a cost. Every argument, every compromise, every confession, it costs something. The smart man evaluates whether the outcome is worth the energy. Will this confrontation bring clarity or just chaos? Will this sacrifice strengthen the bond or expose a crack? This is the work of inner discipline, to choose what is worth acting on and what is best left alone.
Because sometimes the wisest act of control is to do nothing at all, to wait, to watch, to let the river carry away what no longer serves you. So, here's your meditation for today. Be like water. Do not cling to form. Flow around the obstacles. Carve stone over time, not by force, but by persistence. You will find that most problems solve themselves when you stop feeding them. And the people who try to provoke you, they lose their power the moment you stop reacting. That is true control. That is real adaptation. That is the Tao at work. Let the world shift around you, but remain grounded in yourself. Move with purpose, speak with precision, and remember, you are not here to win every battle. You are here to win the war of peace within.
Part 4. The Wisdom of Winning Without Fighting. To win 100 victories in 100 battles is not the acme of skill. To subdue the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill. Sun Tzu. Now, let me ask you something, friend. When was the last time you walked away without raising your voice and still came out the stronger one? When was the last time you let someone believe they'd won while you quietly reclaimed your peace? That right there, that's what Sun Tzu called the highest form of warfare. Victory without conflict, power without spectacle, influence without ego. The average man wants to be right. The wise man wants to be effective. There's a difference. See, Sun Tzu tells us, build your opponent a golden bridge to retreat across. Now, that might sound like compassion, and it is, but it's also tactical genius. Because when you give someone a graceful exit, you remove their need to fight. You protect your peace without triggering their pride. You win by not needing to prove it. This is not cowardice. This is emotional aikido, the redirection of conflict energy, not its destruction. In relationships, romantic, professional, even in parenting, the goal is not to dominate, but to influence without resistance. Let me give you a simple truth. Fighting someone's ego only strengthens it. Evading it makes it dissolve. You want real power? Then do what Sun Tzu advised. Be extremely subtle, even to the point of formlessness. Be extremely mysterious, even to the point of soundlessness. Thus, you can be the director of your opponent's fate. You become formless, not to disappear, but to become unreadable. You become soundless, not to hide, but to let silence speak louder than fury. In today's world, this could mean not replying to that baiting message, not reacting to petty gossip, not explaining yourself to someone determined to misunderstand you. People get confused when you stop playing their game. They expect you to defend, attack, retaliate. When you do none of it, you control the board, because the mind that stays calm in the fire owns the flame. Let's put this in practical terms. Ever had someone insult you to provoke a fight? You say nothing. You keep your poise. They stumble, unprepared for your peace. That's a silent victory. That's the power of invisible force. Sun Tzu teaches, all warfare is based on deception. But deception isn't always lying. Sometimes it's just refusing to reveal your hand. It's walking through life like a deep river, calm on the surface, but impossible to gauge in depth. And that makes people think twice before they disturb your waters. In our culture of instant reactions and emotional outbursts, you'll stand out by practicing deliberate stillness. That doesn't mean you never act. It means your actions come from clarity, not chaos. From purpose, not impulse. The world will try to provoke you. Let it. Because the moment you step off the battlefield and start playing by your own rules, you've already won. Sun Tzu again. The skillful warrior not only wins, but excels in winning with ease. This isn't just martial strategy, this is spiritual alignment. Ease is not laziness, ease is the reward for preparation, restraint, and the courage to disengage. To walk away, not because you are weak,
but because you are free. The Tao teaches, the soft overcomes the hard, the still overcomes the restless, the invisible transforms the visible. So when your moment comes and you feel your blood rising, your pride kicking, your urge to fight igniting, remember this: you don't owe anyone a battle. You owe yourself peace. And in that quiet strength lies a deeper kind of victory, the kind that no one sees coming, the kind that never needs to be explained.
Part 5. Leadership and Unity. The final pillar of Sun Tzu's way. Lead your soldiers by example, not by force. Sun Tzu. There comes a time in every man's life when the battle is no longer with the enemy in front of him, but with the burden of leadership upon his shoulders. When others look to you for clarity, when they take their cues from your tone, your pace, your energy, in that moment, you're no longer just fighting to win. You are fighting to inspire. And Sun Tzu, the great master of war and wisdom, understood this like few others. He taught that true leadership isn't built on intimidation or loud commands. It's built on quiet influence, on integrity, on example. He who excels in leading troops manages both superior and inferior forces with equal success. To lead well is to adapt, not to bend to weakness, but to bend like a bamboo in the storm, unbreakable, but never rigid. Leadership begins with presence. People don't follow titles, they follow energy. They follow someone who knows how to remain steady when others panic, someone who can see the terrain, both within and without. And that requires strategy. Sun Tzu warns, strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. If you're always reacting, always improvising, then you're not leading, you're just surviving. But a real leader pauses before he moves. He listens, observes, calculates. He knows when to step forward and when to step aside. Even in love, in family, in business, the leader is not the loudest. He is the one with the clearest mind and the strongest center. He's the one who says less, but when he speaks, others listen. Now understand this. Sun Tzu was not merely interested in victory. He was interested in victory with honor. He writes, "Treat captives with kindness and care for them." That might surprise some, a warrior advocating mercy. But that's the point. Sun Tzu knew the goal isn't to crush the enemy's body, it's to break his will to fight. And sometimes the softest approach is the most devastating. You don't always win by destruction. Sometimes you win by offering peace so powerful that the enemy lays down his sword willingly. This isn't weakness. This is supreme psychological warfare. It's knowing that even the strongest animal will fight when cornered. So don't corner him. Lead him instead into a place where surrender feels like dignity, not defeat. It is not necessary to destroy the enemy, only to break his will to fight. Even in everyday life, in disputes, negotiations, marriages, and friendships, it's not about proving someone wrong. It's about disarming their resistance. Be the man whose presence eases tension, the one who doesn't escalate, but de-escalates without ever backing down. And remember this crucial lesson. Do not trust a friend who is silent about faults. True leadership calls for humility, the courage to accept feedback, to admit mistakes, to welcome truth even when it stings. Because the leader who ignores his flaws becomes the tyrant of his own downfall. Be wary, Sun Tzu cautions. Beware the sugar mixed with poison, the fly that sat on a dead snake. Not everything sweet is good. Not every quiet man is wise.
Not every ally is clean. Discernment is key. The mind of a leader must see through deception, not with paranoia, but with clarity. And lastly, never forget the cost of war, not just in blood, but in spirit. He who has not experienced the horrors of war cannot truly appreciate its benefits. The great irony of war is that its wisdom is best learned not on the battlefield, but in the silence afterward, when the smoke clears, when the consequences settle. And so it is with conflict in your own life. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to draw every sword. You need to be the one still standing, whole, wise, and undefeated when the dust settles. That is leadership. To lead is to serve. To lead is to unite. To lead is to go first, in discipline, in restraint, in vision. And above all, to lead is to stay true to the path, to the Tao, even when others stray. So carry yourself with clarity, decide with discipline, and move with mercy. Because that's how a general becomes a legend. That's how a man becomes more than just strong. He becomes worthy. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, if you found clarity in the wisdom of Sun Tzu and strength in the silence between his words, then I invite you to walk this path further. Subscribe to the channel for more timeless strategy, philosophy, and inner mastery. Hit the bell icon so you do not miss what comes next. The lessons only grow deeper from here. And if this video brought you value, give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, he who governs himself governs the outcome. Stay grounded, stay strategic, and I'll see you in the next one.